Welcome to the 359. I'm Joni Salzman.
I'm Alfred Ng.
Bill Gates has owned up to his greatest mistake, and it's sitting on the sidelines while Google swept in to dominate mobile. Gates said that mobile operating systems are really a winner-takes-all world, and Microsoft missed out on $400 billion market opportunity when Google became the standard non-Apple phone platform. And it's true. I mean, there's just Android and there's iOS. That's it. Where has that left Microsoft?
I mean, for a while, even in the PC world, it was, Windows and Apple. Like those were the two, computers that you could really get out there. And then they really missed the boat there when it came to the mobile market. I don't know if they just didn't see it as something viable. Obviously, we all know how the story of Windows Mobile came and went. But I think they had come in like a little bit too late. I think had Windows Mobile came out first, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It would be, Sundar Pichai talking about how they wish they had pushed Android further at the time or something.
Right. I mean, well, one of the things that Bill Gates mentioned as a reason why Google had that opportunity was because of Windows dominance in that previous computing era. They were facing a lot of antitrust stuff. I mean, for more than a decade at that point, when mobile started to arrive.
The same antitrust stuff that Google is facing now.
Right.
But yeah, it's hard to imagine how different the world would look if Microsoft had jumped on that train when it came and focused a lot more on mobile, seen the potential that it had in the same way that Apple and Google did.
Yeah, it makes you wonder whether or not having a duopoly, but having one of the duopoly be a different company, if that would make a big difference.
It's kind of crazy the point that he made, though, about how this is a winner-take-all ecosystem.
It's
because like BlackBerry was around then also, as was Windows Mobile and Android, but it was weird that it was, okay, we're only going to have these two. I mean, nobody said that, but like the market responded in that way. It was so interesting.
Next up. In the U.S., FCC Commissioner Jeffrey Starks is leading an effort to scrub U.S. telecom networks of gear from Huawei and others like it, those that are thought to be a threat to the country's security. This comes as U.S. operators are racing toward deploying gear to build the next generation of wireless known as 5G, a big topic of conversation.
It's 5G week.
It's 5G week, y'all. The Commerce Department has blacklisted Huawei and several other companies because of these national security concerns. What do your sources tell you about how much of a concern these companies really are to our security?
I mean, so most of the concern around Huawei is not around like the phones that you can buy yourself. It's about them building the infrastructure and the network surrounding it. A lot of U.S. government officials have basically stated that, Huawei is too close to the Chinese government for comfort, that if they do end up building our infrastructure, that kind of gives a pathway for the Chinese government to spy on users using that network. Huawei has completely denied this at all times, saying that, we are not giving information over to the Chinese government, but there's a big, concern that, they don't have a choice. If the Chinese government demanded that data, they would get it from Huawei, like based in China.
Right.
So the FCC commissioner, Commissioner Starks, his plan takes it a bit further than what others have called for, where others have generally just called for don't use Huawei equipment to build out 5G.
Yeah.
Going into the future. So Commissioner Starks basically wants to go back to 3G and 4G networks that already exist and take it out the same way that you would take out like a building with like lead paint or something like that as a safety measure on that. Yeah.
Right. We also have a new bill in the Senate that's seeking to take on big tech companies and maybe add a little more transparency around how much your data is worth. What's the story?
Yeah, this is from Senator Warner and Senator Hawley from Missouri. So it's got bipartisan support. And the idea is if you're a tech company that has more than 100 million users, you would be required to tell the users, what data you're taking from them, how much you're selling it for, and what you're using for, like who's getting this data and things like that. Right now, companies aren't required to do that. I mean, Google and Facebook will tell you what data they're taking from you, but think about all the settings they have to go through just to see that.
Yeah.
And none of them tell you how much it's worth, but I can say this from other data sales. One person's specific data is not worth that much. I believe one company was selling it for every 1,000 people, their location data, it was worth about $9.50. So like less than a penny a person. The idea is like when there's millions and billions of people using it, like that all compounds and like adds up to, Facebook and Twitter and Google, all these like internet giants, like that's where like the real
The
money
network
is.
effects.
Yeah.
Yeah. For these stories and others, check out CNET.com. I'm Joni Salzman.
I'm Alfred Ng.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining us for the recording of the audio podcast. You can still and always will be able to subscribe to that using the links in the description below, as well as follow through to the articles and other reference links to the stories that we talked about today. Dense topics today. What happened to fun stories, guys?
It's Monday.
Never talked about fun stories.
Nothing is fun.
News is not fun.
No promises. Anyways, folks in the chat, go ahead and send in your questions and comments. We want to talk to you, find out what you want to learn more about, and that's going to fuel us to go and do more research and keep the conversation going. In the meantime, let's go ahead and take some incoming questions from King Lewis in reference to, this isn't really a question, but more of a statement. This is obviously in reference to the Windows Phone. He says, I don't think that was necessarily a mistake on Microsoft's part. It just simply that it concluded its own lifespan. It took its own life. No one could have really stopped it. Do we really think that's the case? I mean, what was truly the flaw in the Windows Phone execution? I mean, a lot of people cite the UI. What do you guys feel? I never used one.
Never touched a Windows Phone.
No.
The problem to me was that it came too late. And because Joan and I have probably never touched a Windows Phone because by that time we had iPhones and Android phones, and you saw a Windows Phone. It was like, well, what is the point of this? There's nothing really enticing for me to get this. And you could say it's the UI that's the problem, but think about this. Like, think about how similar the UI for Android and iOS is, right? Like, you have, like, apps on the screen, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then Windows comes in with Windows Mobile, like, no, well, you got tiles now. And it's just... It wasn't the UI that was the problem. It was that it was so different from what already existed.
The ingrained behavior.
Yeah, like you're used to like just these icons already. Like the tiles could have been better, honestly. It could have been a better thing, but like if you're so used to everything else, it doesn't make sense to you when you're doing something like that. Like the metric system is better than the imperial system, but like you're not going to switch to that because you're not used to it. Or like there's so many that's the it came too late. Everyone was already used to this other thing.
And if something else I think is kind of fun to do an alternate history for, one of the reason that Android was able to succeed, and there were people that were like, what are you doing, Google? They made it free and open source. Like the fact that they made it free and open source for every device maker to use is what fundamentally is the reason why it had such widespread adoption.
Weren't there only like 4 or 5 phones that could use Windows Mobile in its heyday?
Exactly. And so it makes me wonder, like, yes, maybe that's Bill Gates' biggest mistake, but diving into it, is it the fact that Windows Mobile just wasn't as free and open for people to experiment with, play around with, not force device makers to pay you a fee for it, that kind of thing.
We have incoming intel from our close personal insider CBS friend who will remain unnamed as he's watching this show from within this office on company time. He says, I had the Windows Mobile about 7 years ago. The Nokia 910, it was a brick. I could throw it outside the 10th floor window and still not break it. That's how I feel about my Samsung Galaxy Active, so yeah.
The concept. Roger? He's the only one that has a window.
What?
We all work windowless.
We work in windowless cells.
Oh, that's true.
We're not
Except
at the studio.
Roger or John.
If anybody ever wondered what the working environment here was like. Conceptual design with tiles was supposed to match Windows 8 or Vista or anything that OS was really known for, of course. They tried to make one UI that fit all Windows devices. I kind of applaud that effort. I like the consistency concept. Great in concept, terrible in execution. That's my 2 cents on it. Also, apart from Nokia, no one really wanted to use that OS on their phone. So
yeah, because they were trying to do that thing. I forgot the name of it, but like it was basically Samsung DeX before DeX was a thing, where you could like plug it into an HDMI cord and your computer would be on your TV. And yeah, it would match the Windows 10, Windows 8 experience with the tiles. Did not work out for them though, because no one really liked that UI. Like the only people that really remember using Windows phones were the NYPD, and that's because they had like a deal with them going on that canceled out within like 2 years because they stopped updating the phones. Like not them, like Microsoft stopped updating phones. Like, hey, this is end of life stuff. So the millions of dollars you gave us for these phones, sorry, oops.
And all right, let's take some more questions and comments. Next one's coming in from Ken Bruton. What kind of Android phone is Bill Gates using these days?
That's a good question. I don't know if he said during this panel. We can go back, look through the entire conversation. I didn't catch it if he said anything like that.
Someone analyze the shape in his pocket or something like that? What are we going to have to do here?
Let's see what Google will tell us.
It's Monday. It's Monday. Watch us while we Google things.
This is from 2017, so he does use an Android phone. I'm trying to figure out what phone it is, though.
So he sure as hell isn't going to do
He
iPhone.
was using a Galaxy S8 in 2017.
So you imagine he probably stayed within the Galaxy S whatever number world. I assume that he updated to it because he's Bill Gates.
Yeah, so he can use all.
He can update to the new phone.
So he can use all the Microsoft apps on it, like Office and Outlook.
Outlook. Yeah.
From Yan Hao Chen, Intel is another one that really missed out on the whole mobile business side of things. Did they ever threaten a mobile phone? I don't recall that.
Not making a phone. I think the question is more about like chipset. So like, Qualcomm really came in and like took that away from them. And I remember after the Qualcomm Apple case had settled, Intel
Right.
basically like shuttered their whole like
Yeah.
modem so after when Apple and Qualcomm were feuding with each other in court, Intel was going to be their whole provider of like 5G chips and
Right.
all this stuff. The day that they settled, this was in April, Intel like puts out this press release basically saying like, yeah, we're not doing any chips anymore.
They just like gave up. They're
we're
like,
out.
There's no point.
Yeah, because Qualcomm's just going to come back and like, hey, yeah, it's kind of like when you know a couple breaks up and you try to get with them, and then once they get back together, it's like, oh, okay, like I'm out of here. I have no chance at this anymore.
All right, still filtering through the chat. Here's another one from Ryan. He says, can we also talk about why the Palm Pre did not work? Palm should have been a much better at the mobile phone market, but Apple just kind of killed it in marketing. That's the one thing they are definitely better at. You can not argue Apple is good at marketing.
What are you talking about? The Palm is doing amazing.
Is it?
Didn't we see? We just did a show about the Palm last week.
Yeah, but it's not doing amazing in the sense of like Samsung or iPhone.
It's doing better than the Windows Phone is.
Well, yeah. We're only talking about the Windows Phone in relation to it being a mistake. So yes, that's a very low bar to clear. But I mean, it speaks to the kind of winner takes all element of mobile. It's not just the operating system, but also the handset makers. We really have come down to a duopoly of Google and Apple in the operating systems. And it's not quite as stark with the handsets, but it really is just like Samsung and Apple.
Yeah, and
dominating.
Android is really only
handset
hanging
sales.
on there because of the open source software that you were
Right.
talking about, where it's like, hey, everyone can have this.
Right.
Which then leads to security issues, which I can talk for another 3 hours about, but we don't have that kind of time on the show.
Coming in next from Commander Trium, doesn't Windows Mobile still have a place on Surface tablets?
Surface tablets are super cool. I don't know what
It's not
operating-
Windows Mobile,
It's
though.
not,
It's Windows 10 or Windows 10S, which is
Yeah.
like the limited version of it.
Yeah.
I forget, is S for student or sandbox or something? I don't know. But it is sandbox in a way that like you can't download anything that's not approved by like the Windows store, so it's not really like a computer. But yeah, that's Windows 10 stuff. That's not Windows Mobile.
From Michael Brown, I think Windows Phone will make a comeback by way of Android. Are there supposed to be changes to Android to allow OEMs to use the Play Store without the bundle of all the Google apps?
There was a story like that. Forget who had reported that, but it was about how Microsoft is working on Windows 10 OS that would allow using Android apps on it. Don't think that would be considered Windows Mobile though.
Yeah.
I think it's a thin line between that, but yeah, I don't think Windows Mobile is making a comeback. Like that's like Surface tablets and computers and stuff. I don't see that as like a phone like
Yeah.
or anything. And that's what I would count as Windows Mobile.
Also from Commander Trium, speaking of mistakes, can we say anything about BlackBerry?
Right.
Yeah, they're still trying to do it, and I don't understand it. I mean, this is coming from a guy that loved the keyboard on my phone.
Yeah.
I really liked being able to type and not look at my phone. Like I
Yeah.
could cross the street and like not get hit by a car and text at the same time.
Yeah. And it's a testament to how many people really loved that keyboard, loved that. A lot of people were diehard lovers of it, but it just got outstripped in popularity by as smartphones weren't an exclusively like professional level, executive level thing. As it became a populist thing, then everyone got used to using it as in a populist way. And so these kind of like enterprise focused devices.
And we're moving into
continue.
like people that want like the big screens. Like they don't want a keyboard like blocking that. I don't think it was a mistake. I think BlackBerry just failed to adapt to what people wanted.
Yeah.
Like
innovator's dilemma.
Yeah, can you really imagine watching like YouTube or a TV show on like half of your phone screen and the other half is like a keyboard that you're not using while you're watching your shows?
Yeah.
Nah.
From Brian M. No, excuse me. I'm going to take this one from Ken first. Huawei is not the only company accused of spying. Why not the same moat around the likes of Amazon, Microsoft, or Google?
Well, because they're not based in China.
Yeah.
That's the key differentiator.
I thought you were going a different route there because there are other Chinese companies, but the difference is that those are more phone makers and not building out infrastructure. Same thing with Amazon, Google, etc., Facebook. They are taking user data, but they're not taking it for like a government entity.
Yeah.
Two, they're not building out infrastructure. They're not like coming into neighborhoods and like building telephone poles and saying like we're providing this data. If they were, that would be a much bigger concern, I feel.
And also they also just don't have any ties to the Chinese government being particularly the power that the U.S. is.
The big thing with Huawei is like a national security thing, not a privacy concern.
Yeah.
From Muck. This is a bit off topic, but I'm not going to ignore a man named Muck. Do you think the Google leak of the Pixel 4 is a real thing or not? I think it's real because Google cannot stop leaking.
Well,
that sounded dirty.
Confirmed it themselves.
Yeah.
Google made a tweet on their own post. It was like the Made by Google account.
Yeah.
Unless there's another leak that I don't know about. I believe the one Muck is talking about is that. And I don't see any reason to doubt it considering that Google confirmed it. But if there is another leak, please let me know.
From Brian M. I think Microsoft is just not cool anymore. I mean, we don't use any of their competing products like Edge or Cortana or Bing, do
Surface
we?
tablets are cool. They're really cool. They're fun tablets to use.
I've actually got a Surface Hub.
But are they cool? Like,
I mean, I don't know if cool means like some hip kid with their hat turned backwards gonna flip it up and everyone's like, whoa! I don't know about that kind of cool, but I mean, I really enjoy using it.
So you're saying it's not the level of 1996 Capri Sun commercial cool, but maybe it's like your mom thinks I'm cool?
No, maybe it is Capri Sun commercial cool. But it's also like me as like a very, I'm a cool person. I'm cool. I liked it. I've used them and I like them. They're really fun devices.
Yeah, I wouldn't pay for that, but I agree.
I didn't
they
have to
look
pay
cool.
for it.
Yeah. I wouldn't buy one, but yeah, I think to that point though, like if you think of like the big five like tech companies out there, there's Facebook, Google, Amazon,
Fang.
Yeah.
Facebook, Amazon, Netflix.
Is Microsoft there?
Google.
No, Microsoft is not there.
It's not in Fang.
That's hilarious. Anyway, I would say that I don't count Netflix in that, but I was gonna say like I would say Microsoft is probably the easiest one I could cut out of my daily life. Like I unfortunately do use Facebook like a good amount. Facebook would be probably the second easiest, I would say. But like Microsoft, like there's a lot of people that can go their whole like year without using a Microsoft product.
Yeah.
Like there's so many like alternatives to it, whereas all these other companies, there's not really that much. I would agree with that though. I don't see that many people using like Windows products anymore other than like to play games, which is great. Actually, yeah, scratch. I could probably cut out Facebook more easily than I could cut out Microsoft. But yeah, I don't know if they're, I wouldn't say they're cool either. So
Service tablets are pretty cool. If you get a chance to use one, it's pretty cool.
We're almost done. Ryan says, do people actually still use Windows anymore? I mean, if you look around our office, obviously present company excluded, you guys are both running MacBooks right now.
I mean, what do you use, though, if you're on a gaming PC?
Exactly. There. I mean, at the very least, for gaming, around this office, there's almost a perfect divide between Windows and Mac users, depending on what your job space is.
This is company issued. We didn't really
have any
say.
And I mean, here in the studio, I have to use both at all given times.
Yeah, I would use
purposes.
a Windows computer if that's what they gave me at work. Like that's, but I also know that I have a Windows computer at home if I need heavy computing. but I just use my Chromebook otherwise because I don't like I'm not using Photoshop and InDesign like every day. So when
Yeah.
I'm not, I just go on my Chromebook. It's much simpler.
You know, I'm gonna backpedal for a sec, Joe, and I will agree with you. I've got a Microsoft Surface Pro sitting just like 20 feet from me here that I've been experimenting with for some different creative stuff we're doing here in the studio, and it is really cool. There's no other way to put it.
Pop
Like,
open a Capri Sun.
I really don't see
cool.
the difference. Like I've used a Surface tablet like for maybe 30 seconds. Like it's not something I like actually used as like a computer.
Yeah.
I don't see the difference between it and like just an iPad Pro with a keyboard or any tablet with a keyboard.
I feel like it's more versatile than an iPad Pro, but honestly, I've used a Surface tablet more than I've used an iPad
Okay.
Pro. So I'm not a reviewer. I don't.
I'm just
make a point to
extremely
keep up
I'm just
on that kind of
extremely
stuff,
cheap
but-
about things. So like I saw
That's
the
been
Surface tablet
established.
price and I was like, there's no like get out of here.
yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely not a reviewer either. I'm literally just experimenting with it, seeing what kind of things. I can't say I'm particularly well versed in it, but I've had fun, and it is very user friendly and yeah, copacetic like that. So I'm gonna give them that. They get cool points. We are just about out of time. To take us on out of here from our friend Michael Brown, who seems to just have the market cornered on final thoughts. What would it take for all of us to own a Windows phone?
Make it free.
Have it actively supported and have a new
Right.
device.
Make
There's
it
so many
usable?
things. Like it gets no updates. When the last phone that came out for I believe was in like 2016. Like are you saying like what would be the requirements for like to get a new Windows phone? Like I'm not giving Microsoft marketing that answer like that easily.
I say battery life, sheer density and strength and build, and then one of the most impressively robust ignore/do not disturb modes out there. If you can give me that, if you can give me the ability to quietly ignore my boss, I will take it. That's going to be my sell point. All right, so as we've been touting for the last week, we are changing channels. You can find us over on tiny.cc/dailycharge. There's the link right here on the screen. It's also in the description below, and we've been tweeting about it. The show's staying pretty much the same, guys. We're just it makes more sense for us on a daily basis to churn out to subscriber notifications if it's not cluttering up the regular CNET page, but we're still a
boring
CNET
page. You can call it the boring CNET page.
We're still part of CNET. We're still going to keep doing the show in the same time, on the same days. So we are on the last 3 episodes. So reminder, today is episode 576. On Wednesday, it's 578. That is the last episode on our channel. Episode 579 has already been scheduled for that next coming Monday, July 1st, over on the Daily Charge YouTube channel. We hope to see you there. We hope you bring some friends and spread the word for us. And yeah, that's all I got. Joan, you want to take us on out?
Yeah, the 359 podcast is available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Feedburner, some other ones.
Google Play Music.
Google Play Music. Google something
Google
else.
Podcasts.
Google Podcasts.
The Amazon Alexa.
And
Soon to be on
cc./Daily Charge.
Daily Charge.
And
Of course, CNET.com.
thanks for listening and watching.
Have a
See you
great
tomorrow.
evening, folks.